Hi, good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining us. Good morning. My name is Kim Carando. I'm the Assistant Director of College Access Services from ISAC, and I will be co-presenting today. Anna?
Good morning, everyone. My name is Ana Moya. I am a Training and Development Specialist here at the Illinois Student Assistance Commission. So we're going to be talking about the Illinois PaCE framework and more specifically as to the supports we have available. I am going to be passing out a sign-in sheet. If you can all just sign in, have it go around the room so that we have an idea of the interest of the session for future conferences as well. All right, and then just a reminder, this session is being recorded, so if you have any questions, we will have time for them as we go. But to briefly get us started, the agenda for this presentation is going to be the background of PaCE. How familiar are you, how familiar do you feel with PaCE? Just so that I know the background of PaCE, I'm not gonna go super into depth into it, just going into it enough so that it can set us up for the rest of the presentation. But raise your hand if you feel like you're an expert at PaCE. Raise your hand if you feel like, yeah, I can have a conversation about PaCE and explain what it is. Raise your hand if you feel like you can assist with PaCE if a school were to reach out to you or organization. Raise your hand if you are like, I'm here because I had no idea what PaCE is. Okay, perfect. All right, with the background of PaCE, getting into this, the history of it was that the four state agencies, ICCB, ISB, ISAC, IBHE, we had to, starting in 2017, we had to adopt the system for students to be college and career ready. As of, I think it was May 2022. I should have kept that slide because I'm bad with numbers. As of May 2022, it was signed into law, the Public Act that extended some of the items that went into what was the requirement with PaCE. So one of the updates is from Public Act 1020917 was that, again, prior to this Public Act being passed, the requirement was for the state agencies to adopt it, to have a system that the school districts or the schools can utilize to guide the work that they did with students. The Public Act made it so that the requirement was that school districts serving any grade from 6 through 12 did begin the adoption of a PaCE framework, the Illinois PaCE framework or a PaCE aligned framework. So any district serving 6 through 12. The requirement is for you all to adopt a framework. So if you have been put in charge of that at your school or your district or your community, and that's why you're here, just know that the requirement is that you post that on a prominent space on the website for if parents need to see it. It also expanded on college and career pathway endorsements. So we have been finding that a lot of the work aligns with it. If you're here for middle school and you're like, I have no idea what college and career pathway endorsements is, we're gonna get really in depth into that middle school portion of it. And as far as what was the requirement for implementation or adoption, it is that no later than July 1st, 2025, school districts outside of CPS would adopt the Illinois PaCE framework or an aligned framework, and CPS would have to adopt the Illinois PaCE framework as is. With that, two things here. We do have data as of the beginning of this month, and then you'll see the heat map being spring 2024. So we have identified 240 schools and districts who are implementing PaCE. 180 of them have customized their own framework. They customize their framework to be aligned to the PaCE framework, and that's what they're adopting and working towards implementing. 57 of them did work with ISAC in order for them to have those frameworks be created. 60 of them adopted the Illinois PaCE framework as is. The advantages of adopting the Illinois PaCE framework as is, literally at ISAC, all of our services and all of our resources can help with you being able to implement that framework for your students at no cost to you all. In the heat map, I have it's since spring 2024. If you have attended any of our events, the map has looked different throughout the years. The 240 school and districts that we've identified, that has been self-reported. So if you've ever attended one of our events and it looked different, or you saw a section that was there and it wasn't there, it's because it is self-reported. The thing with the requirement, it's not that you do not go through an application process with us. You do not have to get approval from ISAC. We are here to support all of the work that you are all doing, but you do not have to apply for it. You do, however, if you're planning of opting out of this, there is an application process that has to happen, and that is through ISB. But other than that, if you have a framework, if you don't see yourself represented here, any part of the state, I say the belly of the state. If you are in the belly of the state and you're not here on the heat map, it will get updated, but also reach out to us just to make sure we have that information. As of, also due to the Public Act, we did expand our framework to the lower grade levels. Before, the framework used to be from 8th grade to 12th grade. And due to the Public Act being passed, we did expand it to lower grade levels. We were already including 8th grade as part of it, but this just made it so that it would be possible to extend it to 6th grade. The Illinois PaCE framework, that is the umbrella term. So if anybody talks to you about the Illinois PaCE framework, we did break it up into two pieces, but when I refer to the Illinois PaCE framework, I'm talking about the middle school and the high school, because that is the framework. This is the middle school PaCE framework that Kim is gonna go over in a minute. And this is the high school framework. It was split into two so that it could be more easily used by schools. We have school districts that are unit school districts. We have school districts that literally the high school might have 7 feeder middle schools. So this has made the conversation a lot easier. When we're looking into both frameworks, there's a couple of components to keep in mind. The Venn diagram, that's what we refer to as the domains. So if I go through the presentation, it's the domains or categories. So the middle school has different domains from the high school section. And again, Kim is gonna touch on this, but that is meant to be so that students build skills that will better support them when they get to the high school portion of the framework. They'll be able to better interact with the framework. For the high school, it is also broken up similar as far as not the Venn diagram, but if we're looking at the top and the bottom of it, where it's broken up by a student should be supported to, and a student should know. That is something that is similar with the middle school framework and the high school framework. The only difference is that by the end of 12th grade, it does have some time-sensitive benchmarks, and every bullet point, that's what I'm referring to when I say benchmark, it's like an action item or an outcome. So as we get through it, the way we talk about the framework itself, come back to it, ask questions if I start saying acronyms and don't spell them out, to see, to get better understanding of the framework.
Hello, so I'm going to be specifically focusing a little bit more on the PaCE curriculum for 6th to 8th graders. So it does specifically align with the PaCE framework that Anna was just going over. Something you'll notice here, and she went over the Venn diagram, that for high school is for career, post-secondary, and financial literacy, where for the middle school framework, it's aspiration, self-advocacy, and planning. As Anna mentioned, we put this together so that middle school students will be better prepared to interact with the high school framework. So these are more developmental skills. So you'll find as I'm going through the curriculum that really the things that we're trying to focus on with students is helping them build those skills so that when they are interacting with the high school framework, they've already kind of learned some of these concepts, or the concepts that they have learned will assist them with succeeding with those post-secondary career and financial literacy benchmarks in high school, and all of this information is not brand new to them. So I know it's very hard to see the benchmarks, the bullet points that Anna had mentioned, so we can always, these things are always posted on our website. We won't go into the details of those here today. Like I said, it's kind of hard to read, but these resources are readily available on our website. Okay, so this is the book that was used to basically create not only the content for the curriculum I'm going to review, but also those benchmarks that have been added as the developmental framework for 6th to 8th grade. So the book is by Mandy Savitz-Romer and Suzanne Buffard. It's called Ready, Willing, and Able, and it is a developmental approach to college access and success. So this book was written quite a while ago at this point, but we still find it very relevant to what students need to succeed and kind of how to approach making sure that they're not just going through a checklist and checking off things to do and then moving on to the next thing, that they're really thinking about what they might want to do and really taking that in a developmental way more than just feeling like they're checking off items on a list. So I'll go into more detail about the different lessons that we have and how we've incorporated these different developmental stages, but they are all referred to in the framework. So for envisioning, this would just be students can see themselves as a college student. They can see themselves succeeding in a career post-high school, whatever that might look like. And we're not only focusing on four-year degrees. It could be any kind of training program, certificate. It's just about the student really thinking through what they might want to do and it being genuine to them and how they feel, what will help them succeed once they're outside of the high school experience. So creating that vision is a big first step, but then also believing it. So not only being able to see it, but believing in themselves to take the steps that are necessary to get there. And then aiming is really like focusing in more on what do those steps actually look like? What are the checklists of things that I have to do? So that's kind of where that component comes in. And then becoming organized around the different things that they need to do. And those, of course, those skills will continue to serve them as they continue on in their educational journey. And then also making connections, so like building social capital. How do I reach out to people who are going to help me succeed and be mentors in the future, things like that. So the different benchmarks are in that order, and you'll also see them kind of sprinkled throughout the curriculum as well. And then we'll go over accessing the curriculum and all that as I go a little bit further, but go a little bit more in depth into these. So over here on the right is a lot more detail about what each stage actually entails. And this is directly from our curriculum itself. I know we're going to go over a little bit more at the end, but we do have half-day trainings that are available where you'll go and learn a lot more about these stages and then actually what the lessons that are incorporated with each one. So for envisioning and believing, we kind of lump those two together. The goal is to develop self-awareness and form an identity consistent with post-secondary success. So really helping students not only realizing what they want to do, but actually genuinely know that they can get there and the steps that they'll need to take to get there. And then for the aiming and organizing, we also want them to learn the skills necessary to develop and successfully execute the plan. So they've gotten to the point where they know what they might want to do and how they might want to get there. They believe that they can do it. So now it's like, okay, how do I actually do that? How do I make a solid action plan for this? And the curriculum and the mentors that we offer through our programming at the school level as well, you can all help with those things. And the curriculum's also meant to help you sense where students might be in this process so you can kind of figure out how to deliver the different content to them that's going to be very relevant depending on what stage they're at the time. Okay, and then for the connecting stage, this is really helping students so they can persist through challenges and create that support system around them and a social network that can guide them through whatever stage they might be in. So transitioning from middle school to high school, what kind of groups, who should I reach out to then feel like I have a sense of belonging at the high school level? And then we help them transition from high school to the post-secondary space. What kind of, if they're going to be on a college campus, what kind of programs are there for first-generation students, if that's the case for your student, or just different ways that they can get involved to really feel like they belong on a campus. So really helping them think through those things before they get into the situation and then aren't sure how to use the resources around them. So that's kind of really the goal with the connecting piece. Okay, so this is the curriculum itself and just how the curriculum is structured. So again, we do have this available, but we are requiring that one of our trainings is attended. We've done several of those throughout the school year. I think we're done, 5 or 6 at this point? This, I will say the curriculum's also brand new, so we released it this past fall. We've done some trainings throughout the state, I think kind of to all ends of the state at this point. And then once that is attended, then the attendees receive the curriculum link from me, and then they can begin implementing it. We ask that attendees stay in contact with us about how they're using the curriculum because it is brand new, and we're always looking to do updates and improvements, and we always want to hear what the facilitator experience is like. So that's kind of just an overall look at the curriculum itself, but then the way that it's structured. So basically what we did, and I'll kind of go back a little bit. So the curriculum actually came out of, before the benchmarks were available, we were receiving a Gear Up grant, and we're receiving one again now, but this was our original Gear Up grant. We just received a second award this past fall. The original Gear Up grant, when the schools were onboarded, they were very interested in the content that we had available, and they said, can you actually do a Gear Up class that goes around some of these things? So that's actually where all of this began. And what we wanted to do was make the curriculum very flexible for the facilitators. So we, of course, said yes, we want to help them implement a quarter-long curriculum if possible, which actually ended up being quite a bit more content than we had, which is, again, where we started building out the curriculum a lot more. But we found that some of the schools would want, 1 time a week for Gear Up, or maybe up to 3 or 4 times per week. So how do we do a curriculum that's flexible to all those different settings? And maybe they had 20 minutes for a lesson, or maybe somewhere a full class period where it's 50 minutes. So we wanted to make it extremely flexible for all those different types of scenarios where a facilitator can pick up our curriculum, read through it, make a lesson plan, and kind of figure out over the next few weeks what that could possibly look like. So the main component is the anchor lesson, and that's what I'll be going over today is a few of our anchor lessons that are sampled straight out of the curriculum. So, but what we'll do is have the facilitator do the anchor lesson and then kind of pick and choose out of the remaining supplemental lessons. So for every anchor lesson, there's a writing, making, reading, discussion, media, and a practical lesson that are aligned with that anchor lesson. So again, say for example, a Gear Up teacher had students 3 times a week. They would start with the anchor lesson and then maybe pick a couple more that go along with that, and then the following week they could move on to a new lesson, or if they wanted to extend it into a few different weeks, they could do that as well. So it was flexible in that way, but we also wanted to make it flexible depending on the students, what the facilitator felt like would most resonate with the students in their class. So kind of realizing that every group of students is different. Maybe some groups would respond better to a discussion, so the facilitator wanted to make sure to always use that discussion lesson. Or, maybe the class is happening in a computer lab, so they will always use that media lesson. So just kind of making it differentiated learning for the facilitator to really apply what they think the students will get the most out of, but then also have plenty of content in case, maybe there is a class that's 5 days a week. We have plenty of content there for a full week as well. So, and I'm willing to take questions as I'm going if you all have any, or we can take questions at the end too. Okay, so that's the structure. And then I'm going to get into some of our anchor lessons that you'll find in the curriculum. So this one's for 6th grade, and this is how the curriculum looks. I wanted to be sure to put an example in the top right. So we list out the bullet point of which benchmark we're looking to address and how this, or not necessarily how, but which benchmark the lesson that you're getting ready to facilitate addresses to students. So you can know immediately this one's for the planning stage and language that emphasizes individual skills, strengths, and assets. That's directly out of the PaCE benchmarks and framework that we had showed you earlier. So you can know exactly which one you're going for, and also which ready, willing, and able category. That's what the RWA acronym means. So we'll say which one of those is for each one. This example is from the 6th grade lessons. This one's called Strengthen Our Stories. Some of these things are original lessons that we created. Some of these things are resources that we found online that are free and open to everyone, and we just kind of inserted them in the curriculum and then gave credit to where those came from in the curriculum as well. This one's from StoryCorps, and basically what students do, there's, I believe, 6 or 7 different skills or strengths that are over there on the left. This example is growth mindset. The students will learn what is meant by each strength. So over there we explain growth mindset. And then this scenario to the right is an example of exhibiting growth mindset. But basically what the facilitator would do before the lesson is take all of these and kind of cut them in half. And the students get a strength and then have to go through and match them up. So they read through which strength that we're looking at. You might want to talk that through. That might be part of like a discussion piece for this one. And then have them match up which ones we're talking about to kind of check for understanding and make sure that they know which skills are being addressed for that one. Okay, so that's the 6th grade example. This is the 7th grade example. This one's all about exploring habits and creating or changing a habit. So this is one of our original lessons that we came up with. It's called What's Your Marshmallow? And basically, students start off by watching a video. It's an older TED Talk now called Don't Eat the Marshmallow, from actually an older study, but students are always pretty entertained by it. And it actually had a resurgence on social media recently of parents asking students or their children to not eat some candy. If you wait until I come back, you can have more candy, really exhibiting delayed gratification. So the video that we have them watch is a similar study where children are asked not to eat a marshmallow. If they wait until the researcher returns, they get 2 marshmallows. So they can see who waits, who decides not to wait, and it is an entertaining short video to watch just to introduce the concept to students and then have them really thinking through for themselves, what is their own marshmallow? What are the things that cause me to procrastinate or distract me from completing my homework or doing the other things that I need to do? So for this one specifically, it is a lot of introducing different concepts. You know, students may have heard the word procrastination, but they haven't really talked through it and understood what that means for them. So that's a good example. Delayed gratification. Students maybe have heard that, but they haven't heard, going through instant versus delayed gratification. I believe the discussion lesson for this one is a lot of different scenarios, and you talk through with the students. Is this delayed? Or what does delayed gratification look like for this? What does instant gratification look like? And kind of what are the repercussions of both? So really talking through those things, introducing terms. That's a lot of these in general are introducing concepts to students. You would see in the 6th grade one that I just talked about, growth mindset's going to be a new concept. So it's a lot of introducing developmental concepts to students and making sure that they just have a basic understanding of that. Again, with thinking that once they get to high school, they're going to be doing the traditional PaCE framework on college, career, and financial literacy, and having all these things in their toolbox of things they've already learned can be extremely helpful. So again, this one is really just all about self-regulation. It is kind of entertaining too to see what students call their brand of marshmallow. It might be video games, it might be, hanging out with my friends, being on social media. Really having them think through how they spend their time and how it could be distracting them from doing things that are, they should be prioritizing over whatever maybe is fun to do in the moment. So this is I think students really enjoy this lesson and they get a lot out of it. So that's one of the 7th grade anchor lessons. Some of you may be familiar with this one for 8th grade. This is our Claim Your Future kit, and it's all about it kind of incorporates actually all of the financial literacy, post-secondary, and career readiness, all of those into one game. So this is an example of what the kit looks like. If y'all have been to some of our trainings before, we actually now have a new updated kit available with additional careers, updated everything for the salaries and all that. There's a student loan component in the new kits, so you can talk through that student loan concepts with students as well. But over on the right is actually if you have the kit itself with the wheels and the budget worksheet, you have a student The way I've done it previously was pass out the wheels randomly to students, and they just end up with whatever career they're handed. They go through the budget worksheet. They have an annual and monthly salary, and basically they take their monthly salary and start with, where do I want to live, and then kind of go from there. What like level of groceries do I want to get? Do I want to buy organic, which would be more expensive, or do I want to go a cheaper route? So there's a lot of different options there. They go through the wheel. There's a transportation one, communication, and then if they have extra money, they can spend money on extra things like having a pet. So it's a lot of different ways to talk through different things with students. And that would be the actual wheels and the budget worksheet. You can order those on the website. I can give that to you if it's not on here somewhere. But those are available for free. You can get them sent to you right at the school, and that would be the physical wheel and kit itself. There's also an online version. So if you receive a kit, there's 50 wheels in there. The online version has 150 careers. So what I typically like to do is pass out the wheels where students are randomly assigned a career. And then if there's technology and time available, let them log on and pick a career that they're very interested in to do a second time to just kind of compare and see what's the salary, what's the different education levels. That's something that's included in all the wheels as well. So it's, like I said, it kind of pulls in all components of PaCE, of the original framework with the post-secondary career financial literacy. They kind of hit on all of those, and it's definitely something that can be expanded on. Something we've incorporated into the curriculum where this is the anchor lesson, but then if the supplemental lessons are completed in a specific order, the students complete a career exploration project where they use this to start as an anchor lesson. And say, for example, they wanted to do architecture. They would then use that, if they found out through this, okay, I definitely want to do that, they would then use that career to go through and really deep dive into what that would mean, what the different duties would look like, what they would need to go for in school, what kind of classes they would take, all kinds of different things, where at the end, the writing lesson is them doing like a short essay on what they learned from going into a deep dive on these different careers. And are you still interested in this career after you found out a lot more information about it? So this is incorporated in the curriculum in that way. But again, some of you might be familiar. We have had the Claim Your Future kits for quite a while. We just expanded on it to go along with the structure of the PaCE curriculum. This is just an example of something else that's in there. So after they've gone through, I believe this is the discussion lesson. So after they've gone through the activity, over there on the left is the Illinois framework for the career cluster. So they're all included there. That's definitely something to discuss and go over with students. And then you kind of have them take, this is one side, there's 6 of these. You have them take like a short career assessment that's just read through this and check mark the boxes of what you're interested in, total them up, and then just see which one they might fall under. So it's just a different way of doing like a short career inventory to see, is the career I think I'm interested in, does it go along with what my strengths are said through this short career assessment? So just kind of a combination of different things. But again, this would be through going through the whole project that goes along, that's included in the PaCE curriculum. Okay, so this final one for 8th grade is all about mapping a support network and doing some self-advocacy work. So basically, this is a case study on a student named Nick who is struggling in school. There's some different emails that were written. This one is actually from Nick himself. There's another one that's from Nick's parent that is saying what the struggles are that are happening and asking the principal for help. So it's an example of how to ask for help, and that's really what the anchor lesson is all about. And then the supplemental lessons, off the top of my head, I know like the making one is, if Nick continues down this path, what does his future look like? Or if he makes these decisions, what does his future look like? So it's really thinking about decision making and also including in that self-advocacy piece of how to ask for help, when to ask for help, who to go to, things like that. So it really introduces a lot of those concepts, which again, students may have heard about self-advocacy, but talking that through and what that looks like and how that could apply to their own personal experience is super important. So that's how we present that concept to them. Okay, I think I'm good for now. Thank you. I don't know if you were using that or not.
For the PaCE curriculum, we just had a training at Lincoln Land Community College last week. We are in the works of planning one before the end of the school year, closer to the Chicagoland area. And if you want more information on that, sign up for our e-messages because that is the way we put out all of the information. So if you go to isaac.org, scroll all the way down to the bottom, and sign up for e-messaging, that we send that out through there. And then on the Claim Your Future kits, we do have about 10 of them with us today. So we have an Illinois College Access Network. That's gonna be on the right side when you're in the big ballroom. Please don't just grab them. Do sign up for it. We have a person there giving you all more information about it, so that you're not just getting the free kit. Otherwise, you can get it online. If you're like, I'm not really interested in the network, you can get it online, and it will be at no cost to you all. With PaCE implementation practices, this is going to be shifting into what our schools and districts doing. Everything that's in PaCE implementation practice is a combination of conversations we've been having, issues that people have been identifying, and solutions that we have been working with them. So that is going to be this section. With the implementation of it, the first thing is, it's not included on here, but you do want to identify whether you want to adopt the framework or customize your own framework. I think that is the stage where everyone is now. The questions that we're getting, the reach out that we're getting is we want to customize our framework because this school district told us that they customize their framework. Keep in mind some things with customizing your own framework. Oftentimes, the rush is also the implementation piece for it. So if you customize your own framework, you have to go through that process, right? If you look at the Illinois PaCE framework as is, you are able to interpret the benchmarks to the resources that you have, to the activities you already have. So keep that in mind. Once we go through the Illinois PaCE framework with our partners, they tend to be like, okay, maybe I'll just adopt the Illinois PaCE framework as is. So that is step one. Step two is being able to identify areas of strengths and needs. Looking at the framework, what are some things that you're doing really, really well that you're like, I'm doing it well, I'm not going to put additional resources into this year, and what are some things that I'm not doing at all that I need to cover. You want to identify current and potential partnerships. I think that is also one of the stages where we're getting a lot of questions as to how are schools implementing this. At the high school level, a lot of the implementation piece or a lot of the benchmarks do include elements from college and career pathway endorsements, from college and career readiness indicators. So identify potential partners if you were already having some partnerships so that you are able to take that on as well. You want to identify priorities within each domain of PaCE. If you are partnering or you are the middle school and you're partnering with the high school, is there a domain within PaCE that you have a really good grasp of? Whereas there's areas where you might need assistance, you can have a conversation with the high school, maybe with the district to see what resources are available. One thing is early on, identify success metrics. Like I said, this is not something that has to be reported back to ISAC. However, they are asking us, how do we keep track of it? How do we keep track of the progress? Identify those success metrics early on so that you can know when to move on to the next benchmark that you're going to be implementing. We do have a really long half-day training, and I don't mean long in a negative way. It's just a half-day training where we go over some of these elements as far as how to identify the success metrics. More information on that also on our e-messaging. And then create an implementation timeline, share and communicate plan for the goals within the team, and reevaluate this information every year. It's not included on here, but with sharing the implementation timeline and communicating the plan for the goals, this is making sure that you have an implementation team, that you have someone who is going to be in charge of implementing it. We do have at ISAC our what we call the three-step implementation. That is going to be a three-step process. The first one is going to be taking an inventory. This is where you're going through and identifying areas of strengths and needs. You're looking at what you're doing, what you're not doing, what needs to happen. When you get into prioritizing gaps, this is where most schools get to brainstorm potential activities to improve or expand on. I also like to call prioritizing gaps the stage where you're documenting everything, because if you already have an activity where you don't need to expand on it, you can document what's happening for the next year. You're not revisiting that topic. And then lastly, action planning. This is going to put your plans into motion. This is the who, what, where, who's doing it, where is it happening, what needs to happen, who are your partners. These worksheets are available on our website. They're available, the customizable version, but also if you are implementing the PaCE framework as is, that is up there as well, already filled out. Other items that we have been getting questions about is I mentioned it's not other items. This has been a big one. How do we document? How do we track it? And I do have a couple of tips as to like where to look for data to start tracking it, especially if you have a platform or a system like Schooling, Cello, Score, where it has been an area that they have been incorporating into their system. But just for you all to have it, you want to document everything that happens. This is why I do love that prioritizing gaps, because it pretty much helps you do this. You want to have a learning community within your implementation team, and you want to make sure that you're documenting the things that are working, the things that are not working, areas that need to be improved on. And I know I keep mentioning that, but that is, if you did change an activity or add an activity or build something into the curriculum, how well did it work? Did students take well to it? Did they not engage with an activity or a lesson, even at the middle school level? Did they engage the way you wanted them to engage? Was the outcome? So areas of improvements. If you really like the activity, but you're like, let me see how me as a facilitator or my facilitators can improve on that. And then best practices. And we have been loving going, and I say we, the training team here at ISEC, we have been loving going around the state, because a lot of the conversation, whatever we hear as best practices, what are you struggling with? Again, that is where we build upon this part of the presentation. Documenting also is going to allow you to reevaluate and reassess the work that you accomplish from year to year. Another thing that we have been getting asked about is schools or districts are panicking because they think that they have to implement the entire framework all at once. And yes, it looks scary if you look at the framework and you're like, July 1st, 2025, I had to get everything done. With the PaCE framework, regardless of which one you're adopting, just know that you're able to also break it up. Maybe your goal can be that you are working on improving 3 benchmarks. The first year you want to document everything. The second year you want to make sure that you are bringing in new resources and having coverage for new benchmarks or activities. And then keep in mind, we are really into this has been a learning community. PaCE has been a learning community. What are districts doing? What are schools doing? So always feel free to share, because that information also comes back to you all. When you're looking into the benchmarks that you want to improve on, or if you want to just overall start implementing, you want to be mindful of the programs that are already in your school and what this means for the needs of your students. The middle school framework focuses on adolescence development, and the feedback we have gotten is very similar to what you're already doing for SEL at the middle school, right? So if you have items at the middle school level that seem similar to the Illinois PaCE framework middle school, keep in mind those needs, having those needs in mind as you're thinking of implementation. At the high school side, the same thing. I mentioned already, you're already doing a lot with CCRIs and CCPEs, how can you keep those needs already in mind for your students? And then you want to make sure that you're ensuring that all students are making the relevant connection to their futures from what they're being exposed to. Some of the examples we have on here is if you have a student that's in an AP course versus a student in academic probation, as you're thinking about how to implement a benchmark, think about how you would meet both of those needs. The conversations that are happening tend to be very different from the information that a student in academic probation would get than from that student in an AP course would get. So keep that in mind as you're thinking about implementing benchmarks, because you can say, I'm doing an activity for my students, I already do it, but only 20 of them show up every year, right? Is it that you're aiming your resources or advertising them more to students that would be more likely to be in AP courses? Also going along that line, it doesn't have to so much be about our academic. How can you make the connection with a student who is in the drama club then versus a student who is in sports? How do you create programming around a benchmark so that both students do get what they need to out of the benchmark? So those are some of the examples that we have for you all to keep in mind as you are getting through implementing. With setting the stage, you want to make sure the first year is going to be the toughest year with being able to identify what data you do want to collect, with being able to identify how you want to keep track of the progress. I do have some suggestions on here. If you're tracking college and career readiness indicators and college and career pathway endorsement data, look into the framework to see what information you can take from what you're collecting that can align with the PaCE framework. If you have seniors and they're taking the exit survey, if parents are taking surveys, see if any of that data can go along with the PaCE framework as well, so that you're able to utilize that as far as tracking. If you have any college and career readiness platforms, so Naviance, Cello, Schoolings, what information is being collected, what activities are already built into there that you can incorporate into your implementation of the framework. Financial aid application completion initiative. Financial aid overall, if you look at the high school framework, it's a big portion of it. So if you are participating in the financial aid application completion initiative and you have access to that data, look into what you can take away from that. If you know how many first generation students you have, if you know family demographics, and I have an example of something that I had never thought about is even if it's in relation to, is it a one-parent household or a two-parent household? If you have that data and you are looking into attendance, let's say financial aid completion nights, only two-parent households are showing up. And so then you have to start restructuring or rethinking of, okay, not only am I keeping in need that parents work and I'm doing one in the afternoon, but start thinking about the access that a one-parent household would have. That would be like an extra hurdle that they would have to get through. And then, do you know how many students are attending your community college? Do you know how many students are entering a trade? Do you know how many students are entering a four-year university right away? A lot of the career pieces within the framework or even post-secondary, if you can figure out what the interests of your students are, then you can set resources that would interest them, right? If you are telling them about a four-year post-secondary degree and most of your students are going into a trade, then that means you have to reinvent or reevaluate your efforts to include more information about that trade, something that would connect with them. If you are a school that's really good about talking about the trades, but you don't really talk about that four-year universities or institutions or even bridge programs or any of that, and you are seeing that that is what they're interested in, then you can have that conversation of being able to make the connection for the student and providing that information for the student. You want to look beyond at what the data is telling you. It can expose gaps in equity that will exist within the practices that you already have. Again, the best example that I could think of is the having a one-parent household versus two-parent household, right? I hadn't even thought about using that information. And so I'm like, okay, it could make a difference as to what do you offer, when do you offer it. It could be that, I don't know if I have it at the end as an ISAC resource, but we do have our online book meetings. So if you know that you are not reaching one parent households, how can you find resources that would make it more accessible that they don't have to step into your school in order for them to get financial aid assistance? Students who complete a resume in a writing workshop and their demographic information, are there more middle income students available to come after school for a workshop, or are you building that into the curriculum? Are you explaining to them? I mentioned in one of our trainings, I am a first generation student. I am the second out of 5 children. I'm the youngest and the second to graduate high school. So when I built the resume or created the resume in high school, I had no idea of the elements that went into it, what they meant. I had no one to look to that would be familiar with it. So keep those things in mind when you're building your implementation efforts. And then lastly, who has access to the data? You want to make sure that you're involving everyone in your implementation team. If only one person has access to the data, you are limiting what you're going to, you are limiting the resources that you'll have and even the insights that you'll have. I think very different from my colleagues. I look at data and we can have a conversation and they can tell me a point and it blows my mind because I had never thought about it. We're looking at the same data, we might be reading it the same, but making that connection. So keep in mind who has access to the data, especially if you have an implementation team, you want to make sure they all have access to that data. And you also want to be willing and proactive, no gatekeeping. Right? Sometimes it is nice to be the one who gets that insight and has additional insights into the data, but no gatekeeping so that you're able to share. And again, just promoting that learning community and really assisting students to the best of your ability. And then use your community, talk to students, staff, administration, and partnerships. They'll all have unique perspectives as to what programming is offered, how effective it is, how it's being tracked, how it's benefiting. Like if you have partners, if you have outside of school partners, talk to them so that you know, okay, what do I have to do to make it more appealing for them to offer additional resources for our students, and what will they get out of it? My point is in finding resources in this learning community. Education for employment, EFEs, a lot of them do have funding to support schools in the career aspect. So this is something that you can tap into if you are like, yeah, I would love to, but I don't have the resources for it. Tap into those external resources. As of lately, a lot of the conversations have been with community colleges as well. I've talked to a couple of them that they are looking into all of those supports to do everything the high school PaCE framework needs to cover. Literally, they're like, you just need to allow your students to be bussed in and we will do literally everything. So partnerships are gonna be really important as you are taking on this work. And that is going to be a really nice transition into the collaboration and education. Being able to have an event for all students in the state of Illinois where they'll have an opportunity to be exposed to all 12 public universities, that's an amazing opportunity. There's so many times that schools can have that type of event, but it'll only be for their students. So if you're thinking about students throughout the state, there's a lot of missing out on it. So collaboration and education, use that as a resource, middle school to high school. This is going to ensure that the work is spread out. Every time we have a middle school, if it's a unit school district, if we have a middle school be part of the conversation, they would literally, even at the high school side, if they look at everything career related, they take care of it at the middle school. if you have that partnership between middle school and high school, it's just as easy as having a conversation. What data do we need to share? Be mindful. One of the things I realized is, you can have the data, you can have a partnership. Recently worked with a school, it was a unit district, and they were just talking wonders about the middle school and the high school and their partnerships. And then I asked them if the middle school shared their data of like what interests their students had at the middle school, and if the high school provided programming based on that data. And they were like, we've actually never shared that. So something as little as that, as far as collaborating, imagine what it could do to your resources. If you know that your feeder middle school is interested in these careers, how you can shape your curriculum to help that student explore their interest in that career specifically, right? High school to high school. If you are in a district where there's 5 high schools, I call them the East, West, South, and North, right? That they tend to have really good partnerships. They open up events. If someone's having a FAFSA workshop at East, North, West, and South are able to attend that event at East. It's open to all students, so that is going to be a really good resource as well. Middle school, high school, and community college, that's one of the newer ones for me. I recently talked to a district where the community college was covering the cost for their platform of schoolings from middle school all the way to the community college. The purpose of this, or the goal of this, would be that whatever career assessments or whatever they were doing at the middle school, when they got to the high school, because that partnership was happening, the high school had access to it. They can build upon that. And then if the student chooses to go to the community college, once they get into the community college, now they have the whole background that they can build off of and work with that student, right? So that partnership would also be super important. And as of recently, as of January, I also talked to a community college where the president of the community college, I shared this, and she was like, I will do it for my district. So sometimes it's as easy as being able to identify what it is that you need and who can be your partner. High school to local universities and trade schools. If they're nearby and accessible, it would be a great partnership. One of the areas where it's a little bit hard to find data on is knowing how many students are completing trade schools. You have data as to how many students are enrolling in college, in two-year institutions, even community colleges that offer trades, but there is no system, at least I have not found it, there is no system to tell you how many of your students are entering trades after high school. So if you can have that partnership and find a way to keep track of it, that can really also help you. And then ROE and corresponding district office, they have actually been organizing a lot of the events or a lot of the trainings that we do to support their districts as far as getting an understanding of PaCE and for them to understand what it is that you need so that they can provide those additional supports. With building an effective partnership, keep in mind, how does the partnership benefit both sides, right? I mentioned the community college. How does them providing additional resources to you, how does them being able to pay for the platform, if they have the resources, how does that benefit them, right? If the student goes to that community college, then that means that they're going to have access and be able to better assess. Think outside the box on who you collaborate with. Sometimes I think it was at an IACAC conference, I had a community-based organization ask me, hey, how do I help? So think outside of the box. Now they put an event for, it's in the Joliet district, community college district. They put an event where they bring employers. She checks in with me every now and then, and she'll let me know. I brought someone from the FBI. I brought someone from corporate and Walgreens. I brought someone that works in advertisement for Macy's. So being able to think outside the box. I saw a TikTok one time that the mom told her children every time they would be on a drive, like, do you see that it's not the exact same example, but for example, like that garbage can there, someone's job is to think about the color, the placement, manufacturing, and I was like, it's those little things that you don't think about outside of, let's be a doctor or a lawyer, so think outside of the box. Make space for changing dynamics as well, with workforce development, overtime as well. You want to make sure that you are, I have 2 more minutes, so this is going to be available to you all, but making sure that you are building those partnerships and that you are thinking, just like with implementation, you have to reevaluate. Just because you committed to a partnership does not mean that you will have to stick to it, even if it's not working as well. With identifying collaborators, I covered most of this information already. Oh, so sorry. Here, let me put it back for you. You want to keep in mind, especially college and career pathway endorsements and that career exploration piece, you want to keep in mind having local business partners as being able to contribute to what your students need. Don't forget about local unions. I mentioned the trades. If that is going to be a resource available to your student, and especially if they're going to be able to help with the internship component of CCPEs, they would be great partners. I mentioned community college. ISAC supports all domains. I do want to say and give space to ISAC to just say we are your biggest partners. We have our ISAC core. Everything, every presentation, every workshop they offer helps cover, at least at the high school level, every domain. So we are here to collaborate with you as far as post-secondary options. We are here to train. If you don't have an ISAC core member, we are here to partner with you all to give you all information on post-secondary options, supporting students through summer MELT and verification, federal loan repayment options, or even working with special student populations. We do have several initiatives here at ISAC, but this is a very short list of all of the services that we have available to your students at no cost. We have the First Generation Scholars Network. All of this can be found on our ISAC student portal. We have the ISAC Core. The ISAC Core are recent college graduates that get placed throughout the entire state. They're to serve as mentors to students, and they get extensive training on financial aid. We're known as the FAFSA people. A lot of the people that you see here from ISAC, we started as ISAC core members. At registration, those are our ISAC core members as well. And then we also have partnerships with other associations. And again, we're always bringing in resources and trying to see what are the needs of your students. And then just keep in mind, you are going to be a really valuable resource. Even if you think of, if you're like, I have no idea, if you have a question of like what you don't know, that can really help someone else know what they don't know, right? So you are going to be a really valuable resources. Depending on where you are, someone else would be in that same place that needs information. So keep that in mind as we're navigating, getting through July 1st, 2025. And that is all for today. Thank you all.